Well, that's a great question. I've been very, very fortunate. Like I said, I started writing jokes for Catskill comedians, and I did that for a couple of years, where I learned how to write a joke and learn rhythms and whatever. But they were older rhythms. They were guys who were my parents' age. So I looked around and I went, wait a second, where are the guys my age? Where is the younger, what was then the younger generation? And there were two places in New York City, two showcase comedy clubs, one called The Improvisation, the other one called Catch a Rising Star. And that's where guys like Robert Klein and Lily Tomlin, Richard Pryor would stop in. My pal Larry David was just starting out. And they were all a little older than me, but that was the sensibility, the culture was as such where Nixon had resigned a couple of years earlier, and he resigned, I think, in '74. So this actually predated that, but there was Woodstock, and there was, the sexual revolution, and so I started hanging out there. And what I did was I took all the jokes that those old guys in the Catskills wouldn't buy from me because it was a little, what they call too hip for their crowd, and my plan was to go on stage and tell those jokes with the hopes that a manager or an agent or somebody would like to represent me and maybe, submit me to some television show that I wanted to be a TV comedy writer. Lorne Michaels walked in, he saw me, liked the jokes, and asked to see more, and I had a meeting with him, and he hired me to be a writer on this brand new show. And it was interesting because this was April of '75, maybe May, it doesn't really matter. And as luck would have it, the same week that Lorne offered me a job on this new show, I got offered a job to write the questions and bluff answers for Paul Lynde on the Hollywood Squares. And for half a second, it was a dilemma. Hollywood Squares was in LA where the whole business is. It was going into its 9th season. It was a tried and true hit. LA is where the whole TV industry is. All those stars in the shows had their own Las Vegas acts or their own TV shows. This would be a great entree. Whereas this Saturday Night Live thing sounded 11:30 to 1 on Saturday night. Who's going to watch this? Pissed off people because they're not getting laid. They're the ones who'll be watching television. Who's Gilda Radner? Who's John Belushi? And New York, East Coast, late night, the scale was much lower. And but just like I left the Catskills to go look for my crowd, so to speak, this was going to be my crowd. And I said, yeah, I really want to do this. And what SNL did, it not only taught me how to write sketches, because being a joke writer, you're writing for somebody to project outward to an audience, but here was people actually facing each other, having conversations, okay? And what it provided me with was, and I was there for the first 5 years from '75 to '80, was not only learning how to write, but learning how to write for live television, which is a whole different breed, because you have an audience coming in 11:30 on Saturday night, you're going on live. Okay, there's no editing, there's no taking back. Once it's out there, it's out there. And that was great grooming for all future endeavors, because you learned as a writer that nothing was too precious, that couldn't be made better, that couldn't be made crisper, edited or whatever. So especially in the theater where you have live audiences, and after SNL, I wrote my first novel. It provided all sorts of opportunities coming off of that show as an original writer. So I wrote my first book, I wrote my first couple of plays, and then I got introduced to Gary Shandling, and we hit it off just great. Okay, we had the same managers, and we made each other laugh. And what I learned from SNL and what I learned from Gary, and then in all future collaborations, which I've been very lucky, whether it's Dave Barry or Martin Short or Larry David, or certainly Billy Crystal. He and I wrote a play to him that won a Tony Award called 700 Sundays. In any collaboration, I'm going to be arbitrary here, but there's 70% of you, the two of you, that are similar. That's what draws you to each other. But it's that other 30% where the alchemy is that the product will be something that neither one of you could have done alone. And just sort of like that synergy. And so my last book was called Laugh Lines, My Life Helping Funny People Be Funnier. So while I've written a lot of things by myself, I just thrive on the collaborations.